Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are, and welcome to this online meetup. I'm just going to wait for maybe 30 seconds for more folks to join, and then we will go ahead and get started. And actually, I'm going to share another screen while I wait. All right, and all right, very cool. I think we're ready to go to get started. So welcome again. My name is Max Katz. I cover everything education and community for Okta Workflows. And this is our monthly getting started with Okta Workflows session. And the topic today is sending notifications to Microsoft Teams. Now, if you attended previous session,
notifications from Calendar and Tesla. Here
are. Oh wow, my somehow my Siri got activated. I'm sorry about that. But if you attended sessions before the getting started, I'm going to build a flow, and then I cover the fundamentals as I build the flow, right? And again, we're going to build a flow that sends a notification to Microsoft Teams. Now, this event is being recorded, and the replay will be available on exactly the same page. So if you ever need to come back, same page, inside of the live event, you'll see a recording. I will also upload this to YouTube, and you'll get a message from Crowdcast with the link to the YouTube sometime tomorrow. Also, if you would like, you can follow our Okta Workflows channel on Crowdcast, and then you'll be notified when we go live. You can register for upcoming events. And I think that's it. Yeah, if you have any ideas for future events, please let me know, or just in general questions after the meetup. My email is in that first column. All right. Okay. Well, let me move this. Go back to my other browser window. All right, let me see here. Okay, very good. So as I shared, as I build the flow, I'm going to talk about the fundamentals, the basics that you need to know. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a flow, but maybe even before that. So this is the Okta Workflows, flows page. Now on the left-hand side, I have a lot of folders, so you can organize your flows into folders. Let me see. I do have a question. Will the recording will be sent? So yes, you'll get a link to the recording. Absolutely. So now also, once the event ends, the recording will be available on exactly the same page immediately after the event ends. All right. So yeah, so get folders, and you can organize flows into folders, and I have a lot of different folders here, but I'm actually going to collapse this so it's just not in the way. And I have a flow here, and this is something I built yesterday and tested, but I'm going to create a brand new flow. And to create a flow, there is a new flow button in every folder, and then you just click new flow, and right there, it's a new flow. And in the upper left corner, you'll see it says unnamed, and you want to give it a name. So we'll say send notification to Microsoft Teams. And then, it's usually a good idea to give a description. So this flow sends notifications, if I can spell, to Microsoft Teams. All right. Now, I'm also going to turn this option, and then I'm going to talk about it just in a few minutes. But this will allow me to test the flow and see how the data sort of goes from step to step. All right. So got a new flow. We got a name. Now, so the first thing usually when you start is how do you trigger a flow? So there are two main ways you trigger a flow, right? Like what needs to happen for the flow to run? And this is this box here. It says when this happens. So the two most common ways is on when an event happens somewhere in Okta, or could also be in other system, right? So for example, I'm going to be using user activated. So the flow can listen to a user activated event. And then when that happens, this flow will be triggered, right? So that's with Okta, but you can also listen to events in other systems. So it doesn't need to be Okta. And you would click add event, and you can see that there's a list of connectors. So you can listen to events in any of these applications. Now, of course, every connector is going to support different events, right? But for example, just to give you an example, let's say go Gmail. So there are only two events here. For example, when new email arrives. So if you're monitoring a mailbox, you can trigger a flow when a new email arrives. So again, every connector is going to support different events. But let's go to Okta. Now, Okta supports the most events here. You can see there are a long list of events. So you can use any of these events to trigger a flow. Now, the other option, let me click out here, is on schedule, right? So you would be right here. So you can run the flow on schedule. So you can run it every hour, every day, every week, and there's some other customization options so you can really customize when to run the flow. So those are the two most common ways. I'm also going to add there's a third way, which is also common, is via an API endpoint. So you can have a system call an API endpoint, which in turn triggers a flow. Okay, but in our example, we'll be using an event, and so I'm going to go to Okta, and I'm going to search. So you can search. There's a long list of events you can search. So I will say user activated. So I'm going to use this event. All right, and so right away, I've got this card. So this is called a card, and then I can see the information that the event makes available for me. So when this flow is triggered, all this information will be available to be used in the flow in other steps. Now, what I usually do when I try an event, and if I try an event that I haven't tried before, say, hey, let me see if I can actually call this already. This is already sufficient for me to actually test and see if the flow will be triggered. So I'm going to click save. Now, you want to turn the flow on, and then so there is a button, and you open it, and then you're going to turn the flow on. Right? And then this option is the same one, save all data that passes through the flow. It's the same option that's here. So when you run the flow multiple times, you can see the data for each run. All right. So we turn the flow on. Also, just kind of as a tip, for event-based, when the flow is triggered via an event, it might take a minute or two for the flow to register. So if you run the flow right away and you don't see it's if you invoke the flow or trigger an event, it might not, again, it might not trigger right away. So just wait a minute or two and then try again. All right, but I'm going to go to my dashboard and all right, and then I've got a user here. I've got only, I think, 10 users or so, 12. And I'm going to click on Maya, and Maya is deactivated, and I'm going to click activate and then activate again. And I'm going to go back to my flow now, and to see how the flow is running, so there is the execution history tab. And I'm going to switch here, and you can see there's one successful run. And then you can see all the data that was passed into this flow. So I can use all this data in other steps in the flow. All right. Now, and then so this means that the event is working. So I usually, before I start building the entire flow, I like to do this just to make sure, hey, I can trigger an event and it works. Okay. So the next step is we got this information that the user was activated, and now we want to send a message to Microsoft Teams. Now, if I look here, that I get the admin, so this is the person who activated the user, and now right here there's Okta user. So I get some, some information about the user. I get the ID, the alternate ID, display name, and the type. And again, if I go to history, I can scroll down and then find the field Okta user, which is an object. And now object fields will have, see those two arrows in the upper right corner, and you can expand, and then you can see the JSON. So you can see we got the ID, we got the email, which is the alternate ID, and then the display name. All right. So that's the information that the event passes to us. Okay. So the next step is I want to create a message. And for that, I'm going to use a function. Now, a function, let me show you. So there are a lot of functions into different categories. But at a high level, these are steps that allow you to work with data. So you can create data, manipulate data, delete data, create data. You can do a logic if else. Work with text, numbers. Do again. I said if true or false, or if else, date and time, and some other categories here. But again, at a high level, all these functions allow you to work with data. And the one I want to use is in text, and it's called compose. And every function will have a short description. So enter freeform text. All right, so that's the compose. Also, the compose is also available in the most popular category right here at the top. All right. And what I also do often is I search. Okay, so if I need to find a card, so you can do compose, and then it finds the compose here. All right, so I'm going to use that. And as you can see, this is just a free text, and I can type anything I want here. But let's say I want to say user activated. Okay, and now I want to pass data from this card into this one. So this is one of my favorite capabilities in workflows, is that what I can do is I can take a field. I'm just going to take an ID and then drop it like this, connect it. Okay. Now, looking at the information, I see that I have the ID, which is this alternate ID. But let's say I want to also display the title, right? I want to send a message that I've got the name, I've got the email, and the title, but the title is not available here. Okay. The event doesn't make it available. Now, it's not a problem, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another step where I'm going to read the information about the user, right? And there I can get all the information that's available about the user. Okay. So I'm going to click this plus. Okay. So of course you can add steps, as after the last one, but you can also add steps in the middle. And now this is a function. This is what I showed you before. So this is sort of working with data, numbers, list, objects. Now this one is what is called an app action. And so this is where you call interact with other apps and other services. So this looks similar because these are all connectors, right? There are pre-built connectors in workflows. And then every connector is going to support a different set of actions. And so you can call these actions, right? Now, behind the scenes, these are API calls, but it's a much higher abstraction level that you don't need to worry about setting up the call. But let's actually build this. And so we're going to use Okta, right? So I'm going to Okta here. And you can see the list of actions that I can call. There's, again, a long list of actions. Now, again, what I usually do is I search. So I'm going to read user, and it says retrieve Okta user information using the user ID. So I'm going to now every connector, so all the requires a connection, right? So you can have a connector. Now you can have a connection, and you can have multiple connections to the connector. So you can have, for example, this is a list of connections to Okta. So I have a preview, but you can also have a connection to production or to another environment. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go over the steps here on how to create a connection. What I'm going to do is I'm going to include a link in the email that I send out. But you just go to your Okta admin console and get a client ID and a client secret, and you set up the connection. Now, every connector is going to be a little bit different. But again, before you can use a connector, you of course need to set up a connection. All right. Now, also usually, and again, depending on the action itself, it's going to ask you, so which outputs or maybe inputs you want to see on the card. Now, this one only has one input, which is the ID, but then there's a lot of outputs, and we don't need all of them, so we can just uncheck them. Right. Now, what we do want is username, first name, last name, and then we have title here. All right. So I'm going to save, and we got the card. All right. Now, what I also like to do is you can test individual cards. Now, before we triggered the entire flow with just one card, but you can test individual cards as well. And then what I'm going to do is I need the ID. Okay, so I'm going to go to history, and I'm going to look here, Okta user. Now, and I'm going to copy the ID, and I'm going to go back to flow. Now, every card is going to have a test button at the bottom here. Just test this card. And then I'm going to enter the ID and click test. And we can see that the information was returned to us. And so Maya is a no-code builder. All right. All right, so this also means, well, the card works. And again, it's really good practice to test individual cards. So now I need to pass the ID from this card to this card. So I'm going to scroll to Okta user. Just be kind of a sort of careful. You don't want to pass the admin information. You want to pass the Okta user information. So I'm going to take the ID and I'm going to connect it like this. All right. All right, now I've got the information. Now I can build this card here. So I'm going to say first name, and then I'm going to take last name, right? And then maybe I'll open the parenthesis. I'll put the username, which is the email. All right, and finally, I'm going to get the title. All right. Now, if you want, you can even test this card. It's pretty straightforward. So if I enter my information and say no code builder, click test. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to see this message here. All right. So this works. Now, the last step is that, hey, I want to send a message to Microsoft Teams. And so for that, I'm going to use the Microsoft Teams connector, and it has an action to send the message. So now again, remember, function is usually, well, not usually, but it's manipulating data. Whenever you want to connect to another service, another app, that's an app action. And I'm going to search Microsoft and then Microsoft Teams. And again, I already have a connection to Microsoft, so it's not going to prompt me. But the one I want here is send message to channel. So this is the action that I want. Okay, now I've got a connection here. And as I said, the Okta was of course different, but this one requires ID, team ID, and then channel ID, right? And then content here. So I'm going to go to Microsoft Teams, and to find this information, if I've got a channel here called Okta Workflows, and to find the ID for the team and the channel, you select those three dots and then get link to channel. And in this link, you can see the whole thing, but you would copy it somewhere else. But this is the information that you need. Now, I do have this information in this note here. So this is the link right here at the top, right? That's what you would copy from there, right? And this is the ID, and then this is the group ID here you need. So I'm going to copy. I just don't want to click on the link. So actually, I'm going to get it from here. It's the same thing. So I'm going to copy. This is the team ID, okay, and this is the channel. All right. All right. Now, And as before, I can test this card just to make sure I can send the message. So we can click test and say hello, workflows, click test, right? And then this is the response that we get from Microsoft Teams. And if I go to Microsoft Teams now, we can see that this message was sent, right? Now, also on the response, if there's a lot of information, but you say, you know, I don't need this information really, just wanted to make it more kind of a, I guess, elegant, or so you can hide this information. So you can click this gear on every card, and then if it has an option to show hide fields, it's going to say choose fields, and then you can decide which fields to show. Now here you can uncheck these because these are required, but the output, you can just decide what you want to show. All right. So now for the content, I've got this message, and I'm going to take this output and connect it. All right. I'm going to save, and my flow is still on, and I'm going to go back to the Maya. All right. And before, I need to deactivate Maya because she's active now. All right. And let me do this again. Okay, so Maya, so I've got that. Now I have the activate button, and I'm going to click activate. Right, and I'm going to go to my flow, and I'm going to go to execution history. And now I see a second run here, and we know the event was triggered. Now I'm reading the information about the user. That's the second card. I've got the compose card. And finally, I'm sending the message to Microsoft Teams so you can see the information. Now, if I go to Microsoft Teams, we can see this is the information that was sent. All right. Now, just to show you, I'm going to run this again. And let's deactivate Maya again. Okay. Now, I'm going to go to history. And just to show you the different, so you can see how the information is saved. Well, the data is saved when you run the flow. So you can see, go back and see what data was used for each run. And that's what this option does. Save all data that passes through the flow. So this is extremely handy for sort of debugging and testing the flow. So I'm going to activate. All right. Now, in this particular case, the information is going to be very similar, but sometimes you have to go to flow and then come back. And I've got the third run. But now you can see all this information for this latest run. And if I click on the second run, you see all this information. So this is what this option does. It saves the information for each flow run, so you can come back to it and see what was happening. All right. So now, so this is working fine, but one thing it's missing is that it's really text-based, right? All I can do is send the text, only text information, because I can send a message, but there's no option, or it's not exposed on this card to send a rich message or an HTML message, okay? And I would like to send something a little bit more better looking than just plain text. Now, what you do is, well, you can say, you know what, let me see if there is another action that's available. And so if I go to the Microsoft connector and I look here, and I don't see anything in the action list that says that you can send a rich message. And then what you usually do is, well, let me look at the API, right? So as I said, behind the scenes, this is an API call. And I'm going to go to Microsoft here, and this is the send message. And let me see, let me scroll up. Let me see an example, request headers. Actually, here's an example, okay? So it looks like this one is still plain text, but I'm going to scroll down a little bit and I see, oh, now I see something else here. Now it says content HTML, right? So it looks like I can send HTML messages, but I can't specify the content type, or the body, I should say, in what's built in workflows. So what can I do? Well, what's really cool is that, or helpful, is that every connector has what's called a custom API action, right? And then what it allows you to do, let me open it here. Let me go to Microsoft, is that makes an authenticated HTTP request to the Microsoft Teams Graph API. So what it does is that it allows you to make an API call to really any endpoint available in for that application, for that right. And even if it's not available with a built-in card, you can use this to call any API endpoint. So I'm going to use it. And also what's nice is that I'm going to first select a request type, which is a post. And now it's asking me like, which inputs do you want? Actually, I don't need, it's a relative URL, but I don't need the query in the headers. And I do need the body. And I'm going to click save. Now, what's nice is that it reuses the connection. So the authentication portion is taken care automatically. So you don't need to set up the authentication. You do need to specify the endpoint, and then you do need to specify any parameters that that API endpoint requires. But the authentication you can reuse, and that's what's really nice. So the API endpoint, if I go back to Microsoft Docs, and if I scroll up here, this is right here, right? So you can see I need to create this API endpoint with the team ID and the channel ID. And I have my cheat sheet here, so this way I don't need to type, and it's right here, right? So I've got the ID, the team ID, and the channel ID. So I'm going to take this and copy it here. And now for the body, it requires a JSON object now. And so I'm going to go back to my cheat sheet. And right here, I'm going to test this first, right? And I'm going to take it here. And I'm going to click test. And I'm going to paste the JSON. So you can paste the whole JSON. It doesn't need to be just a text property. And I'm going to click test. And I get the response back. I can close. And let's go to Microsoft. And we can see that now I have the first word in bold and then Okta Workflows in italics, right? So now this works. I'm going to go back and I need to change this message. So I'm going to go back to my cheat sheet and I'm going to use this. All right, so I'm going to, oh, sorry, didn't want to do that. Let me just delete everything here. All right. Oh, it did not, it lost my brackets here. Let me see what I can do. Just copy and paste. You know what? You can see it. I have a notepad here, but let me do it from the notepad. I think it's going to keep. All right, this is better. I have another document notepad that I'm not sharing, but now also what's nice is that you can actually specify a subject for the message. So I've got a subject here, and now I'm going to build the message. So I'm going to take the first name and put it in the bold and put a space. This is the last name. And then I'm going to put the username. It's going to be in underline. And then the last one is going to be the title. All right. And then the message is sent here. Oh, sorry. I need to move it to here. So I'm going to I have two cards now. So here's a little trick you can do is you can take this value and drag it all the way here. You can also take this from here and drag it to the card like this. All right. which is neat. And I'm going to delete this one because I don't want to send two messages, right? So I've got the relative URL, I got the message, I got the connection information ready, and I'm ready to test. My flow is on. Let's go to Maya and let's deactivate Maya again. All right. And let's activate. And let's see here, go to flow history. So let's see here. Okay. So you can see that this is the very latest run and the message. But if I go to Microsoft Teams, right, we can see this is the message that was sent. So I got the subject, I got the name in bold, the email underlined, and then the builder, the title in italics. Okay. So this works. So now, if you want to send a text message, you know how to do that. But if you want to send a rich message, you can use a custom API action on the Microsoft connector to do that as well. And again, every connector is going to have the custom API action. So again, you can use it if there is a particular endpoint that's not available, right? Now, in our case, the endpoint is available, but it just wasn't exposing the right parameters for us to send a rich message, right? So that's also another case where we use custom API action. All right. And that's all I wanted to show you. But again, just to summarize, we built a flow that is activated, is triggered when the user is activated. Then we read more information about the user. We compose a message. It was a text message first, but now it's a rich message. And we use the built-in action first to send the message for text. And then we switch to custom API action to send a rich message to Microsoft Teams, right? Now, what we also have, so this Microsoft topic is that we published a set of tutorials, and if you, it's linked in Crowdcast. There's a green button that says Okta Workflows with Microsoft tutorials, and we published 3 tutorials in the series here that sort of takes you through using the various Microsoft connectors. There's one email, there also Microsoft Teams, and we're going to be adding more tutorials with the focus on Microsoft. But we've got 3 tutorials so far. And so again, what I built is based on the second and the third tutorial. All right. Very good. Let me see. So there's one question from Karsten. So can't you just use Markdown in Microsoft Teams like in Slack? So you know what? I tried Markdown. I was really looking and I could not find a way. It doesn't seem like it supports Markdown. At least I couldn't find a way to do it. If you know that of a way to do it with Markdown, let me know. But again, I could not get it to work. That's why I went with this approach. But also, I think this is, of course, gives you more flexibility because you can put any HTML here. So, all right. So I think that's all I wanted to show you. Yeah, I mean, as for the basics, again, we talked about how to trigger a flow, how to use functions, how to use actions, how to pass data from card to card, how to test individual cards, and then, of course, how to test the entire flow. All right. Let me go back here. All right. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. But you can also, I'm going to put the slide back up again. But if you have any questions after this, let me know. My email is in the first column. And as I said, you'll get an email with a link and also to YouTube. And then we have a lot of videos on YouTube Also, a lot of getting started videos. I cover a different flow each time, but a lot of getting started videos that kind of have a similar theme where we build the flow and cover the basics. So cool. Well, I don't see any more questions. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.